It's 24 degrees Celsius here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily, your daily dose of sunshine. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
At least there is a match somewhere. Today is 24th day in the month of September, and it's 24 degrees in Abuja. Okay, cool. So there is a match. Unfortunately, it's 25 degrees here in Lagos. And I don't know, it's just getting cooler by the day. Let's just say that not many people are complaining about heat, particularly in this season. And it's still instructive, a little bit instructive, Mark, where that usually at this time, people are shouting, Harmattan, Harmattan. We're just shouting, it's cool. That is cold or not, that's another thing. Anyway, welcome to the show.
I don't know what calendar you're working with, though. that must be old school calendar. The new school calendar. The rainy season is on from April to October, and no one is shouting about the heat that time. But right now, it's getting a little stuffy in Abuja. I mean, with all the people coming in for different ceremonies, not least of which is the call to bar ceremonies which are currently going on, and is filling the Federal Capital Territory with all manner of visitors, of course, who have come to celebrate with their loved ones who are getting called to the bar. Well, you know, that's a matter. Congratulations if you're one of those people, you know, who has been called to the bar. The Nigerian Law School is still doing, let's say, an awesome job in that regard. But moving on now to a number of things, part of which is international relations. It's also the season of the United Nations General Assembly currently holding in New York. And the session opened yesterday. Nigeria's delegation is there, led by the Vice President Kashim Shettima and a number of ministers, as well as some governors. Yes, we saw a number of governors who were also at the event, attending a number of programs on the sidelines of the main event at the General Assembly. We hope that Nigeria will, you know, be able to reap some things from their engagement at the United Nations General Assembly. The United Nations is currently facing very strong, challenging times with calls for reforms and questions about its effectiveness in the current state of things internationally that we're seeing, especially with the wars and the different crises that are currently taking place around, you know, different parts of the world. The organization was made to make peace, but it cannot do so without the, without the cooperation of its members, particularly the Big Five, the permanent members who hold veto power. And yes, there is a Security Council which has now been expanded with 10 non-permanent members. Nigeria is, you know, also advocating alongside other African countries that they be made a permanent member, that there at least be one seat for one African permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. But people are asking, will that model still continue to work? You know, somewhere where some members are more equal than others? But I maybe I'm staying too long on the international scene. For those who are wondering what this is all about, United Nations is a body, it's a very important body. We all should, you know, be very concerned about the state of the United Nations. It's all about the well-being of the world, especially when it comes to international relations. But I digress now. I guess a part of my own learning and leaning is coming out in this one. Ayo, what exactly is happening locally? I do know that also there has been a conference whereby, you know, renowned men of God are also concerned about the state of things happening locally in our country.
Well, no doubt, because of what you can call globalization, issues of international relevance always have a way they influence local politics or local socio-political life of different nations and vice versa. Because you don't forget, of course, that Nigeria has always been in the eye of the storm when we talk about transparency, talk about corruption index, talk about human capital development. These are international indices that Nigeria definitely plays in. So when the PFN got together, for instance, to talk about a thing or two, corruption was one of those things that the clergy were talking about. Let's listen to one of them.
One on the list, let's fix the economy to make sure that the economy is repaired, the leakages are filled and stopped, and that the tremendous wealth of this nation is not trapped with the 5% at the top. Let it trickle down to the grassroots. Anybody found with corruption should be severely punished. And the anti-corruption agency like ICPC, EFCC should not become a political tool, should be left to operate neutrally and to deal with corruption and corrupt people without government interference. The Lord will help us. And then again, in dealing with the economy, please, let's look at the value of the Naira. The value of the Naira today is humiliating. When you devalue people's money, you devalue their lives.
That's true.
And let's take a look at it. Some children in the north are learning under the trees and their government-owned school. We should look into this and give our children quality education.
We believe the future of PFN, especially in terms of governance, is the way we train people for ministry, evangelists, we train people for politics and governance. Out of that set of people, we believe that Josephs will rise, Esthers will rise, that will make the difference. I can't blame someone that is not trained, and you pitch him into House of Representatives or Senate. It's going to be difficult. That is truth, because it's overwhelming. We need to shift minds in Nigeria. An average Nigerian person thinks he needs to be corrupt to succeed. And as pastors, we think we can do better on Sunday mornings. And as we keep investing that in people, that shift would have an effect. It's not a day's job. It's going to take some years, but the journey must start now.
Well, there are those who have wondered whether or not the clergy, the religious leaders, have a say in our national polity. Well, you've heard that. And there will always be perspectives to some of those things. Don't let's even go into some menial issues that will usually arise from there. But we have someone here in the studio with us to talk about this and a few other current issues that we'll be tracking for you. Okweyemi Oluwatodimu is here in the studio with us. He's a lawyer and public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, listening to the clergyman speak, and particularly, first of all, let's take the Reverend Francis Waluke's comments that the rule of law should be pretty much saying that the rule of law should have more bite than just back. Of course, we'll come back to the other one by the other clergyman, but what is your take on that?
Well, it is very important that the rule of law is upheld, and because if we don't allow the rule of law to operate and bite, we would find ourselves in a state of anarchy. And the challenge is that if you live in a lawless society, it's an invitation to anarchy. And at this point, we have the institutions, we have, all we need is to ensure that there's enforcement. And I align my position with the pastor that the rule of law must bite, because people will get away with a lot of illegalities. Yeah. And, it is quite frightening and worrisome.
What's interesting is that whether the rule of law will just back without bite, or it will bite, comes down to your profession, comes down to your colleagues who will argue for or against, citing, relevant or irrelevant cases in some cases. So there is always a place for the judiciary to play when we are talking about the rule of law, because sometimes it looks to us like, hey, this is nursery school English. It's just plain paper. This is what the law says, and this is what must take action. But we always find that sometimes when there are arguments and counter-arguments, they don't usually go the way we seem it should go in our eye. It is simple, but in the eye of the law, it usually is not.
Well, yes, I agree with you. And the truth of it is that the judiciary needs to be up and doing. Because
you don't think they're up and doing enough?
Well, yes, like you have mentioned, you will see that many of these instances that you even read, the common man on the streets expects that, oh, this is A has been done, then the appropriate sanctions or whatever should be meted out. But, because we have quite, the delays, We have had instances wherein you are talking about land transactions and you're spending 10 years in court. And you know, you would even look, you know, there are so many matters that ordinarily, okay, let's look at the example of the senator. She has resumed. She was, you know, she was suspended for 6 months. And she has gone to court to challenge that suspension. 6 months, the office was opened yesterday. And you will see that they are still at the Court of Appeal. What happens if the court makes a pronouncement? Most likely it might now become an academic exercise because the rest has been destroyed. The events are already overtaken. You know, and those, most times, if you look at it with what happens on a daily basis, you will see that we need to ensure that our judiciary bites. How? Ensuring that there is speedy delivery of justice. If there is no speedy delivery of justice, then the exercise is academic.
Well, that's one court. The judiciary is one court. Another court is the court of public opinion. But please don't speak to that yet. There is also the aspect of training. And one of the questions we've asked on this program a number of times is, do we even have a way of training leaders, the younger generation, for elective positions in our country today? And then you hear Pastor Yemi Davids there saying that they don't just train clergymen to be pastors and all, they also raise people, train people to go into political positions, elective, you know, offices and all of that. Do you think really that the church or any religious organization has what it takes to build people for that level of leadership?
Well, yes, I would want to believe that, because if you look at the Christian and the Islamic religion, it plays a pivotal role in shaping the attitude of young persons, even people, because the expectation of from a religious person is that you must be morally upright, you must be prepared to you know, adapt and live in the society in a way that will be constructive. Having said that, now the church of today has gone a step forward to also ensure that, you know, to see that the organized trainings and platforms for the young persons to be able to adapt to the society and also lead. And, you know, there are so many programs that they call up and run for people to enter into leadership roles and performative, you know, functions. And I think that is a step in the right direction. Where the government can now come in is to, you know, walk the talk as opposed to just having social studies or civic duties in primary school or secondary school and the university. We must now consciously, because it is a conscious effort that we must adapt. The government must now make a conscious effort to ensure that people right from the formative stage to tertiary, they must ensure that leadership and responsibility is built into our curriculum.
And you know, what's also interesting in what you have just said now is this interesting, well, unfortunate scenario we have on our hands, where we hear that some elected officials at the lowest level of government, which is really the foundation level of government, have died in what I don't know whether to call it strange circumstances, particularly in Lagos. We understand that 4 female, more specifically, there is a death of 4 female elected officers in Lagos. It's already sparking some controversy at various levels, and one is wondering exactly what is going on here. It's just 57 days ago, on the 27th of July, when the newly elected council chairman and vice chairman and councillors were inaugurated across Lagos. Shockingly, within this same period, 4 of them, all women, have passed. So if people have been trained to get into office, and they actually now do get into office, and then this kind of unfortunate incident occurs, first of all, number one, what do you make of it? And number 2, how encouraging can it be? Or vice versa?
All right, you know, the truth of it is that, you know, I've read about these instances, and death is inevitable. Now, what we must now ask ourselves is that, yes, they have said that these deaths are strange because they are women. We don't have a statistics of the men that have died. Now, now that this happened in Lagos, there is a coroner system law in Lagos of 2007 that says that every suspicious death must be investigated and the coroner must sit on it to ascertain the cause of death. And I think that that's the best direction that the government can start from, to actually ascertain the cause of death of these persons. If it could also be as a result of the stress of the parliamentary duty they have been assigned to. It could also be as a result of other mysterious circumstances. But the truth of it is that we must ensure that we keep a platform where everybody is not afraid to put themselves up for elective position. Not that I say, I put myself up for elective position and the next thing is death because of extraneous factors, because of vindictiveness, because of voodoo or whatever. So we must ensure that we have a level playing ground. Because if this nation must improve, if this nation must get better, we must put in our best hands to ensure that they turn around the system. And if we keep killing them, if by mysterious circumstances, everybody is afraid, nobody wants to die. You take office and you die. And I don't think that is a good development.
It's a little worrisome, Mr. Oluwatodumo, because it wasn't just in one local government, it's in various local governments across, the state. One was in somewhere around Ojuwe, one was somewhere around Badagry and all of that. And this is also coming, especially for females, and at a time when we are still advocating for more inclusion of the female gender in our politics. This is definitely not going to be very, very encouraging, because you know how passionate, for instance, women are about their families, about their children, about their spouses, and the sense of responsibility that they always have to carry. So what would be your perspective? What, on the one hand, is that of investigation. What are the likely consequences of this occurrence that you think we need to guard against?
Well, as it stands, if the investigation is conducted and the reasons for these deaths, if it's found out that they died under suspicious circumstances, then such should be nipped in the bud, because they are a delicate species and they must be handled as such. Because you can't, we are still complaining that we don't have enough women in politics, and the little who have summoned courage to participate are now being killed. No. Okay. And that's why the government must also be proactive to say, oh, one death is too many. We should, 4 of them, what is going on? We have not heard about the corona system kicking into play and all that, So that means that we must ensure that, and justice is not just to be done, it must be seen to be done. The government must be proactive. People must go all out to say, oh, what has happened? There must not be a reoccurrence. If it is health challenges, if it's because the system is too strenuous, then there must be there must be parastatals, there must be actions to forestall such circumstances reoccurring.
All right, well, there is this also the issue of the Nigeria's foreign policy that Marquez started to talk about. I'm sure she would like to take you up on that as well. Okay, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Ayo. Indeed, Nigeria is currently at the UN General Assembly taking place in New York. The UN has been facing recent threats, and when you look at the opening plenary session of the General Assembly yesterday and some of the speeches that were given by very prominent leaders of the free world, so to speak, some people will say it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of what should be happening to a body like that, which is a body essentially built on consensus. Countries coming together, surrendering a bit of their sovereignty to say, we want to make this happen, we want to make the world a more peaceful and better place. But from what we have seen in recent times, especially with the war between Ukraine and Russia, and also between Israel, I don't know if it's a war, if it can be categorized as a war between Israel and Gaza, because some people will say, if the other party stops fighting back or is unable to fight back, can it still be categorized as a war? But these are some of the current battles on the front lines now for a lot of people to consider. We're bombarded by these visuals on a daily basis, and yet it does appear that the United Nations is powerless in some of these situations. What is some of your thinking as a Nigerian looking on the world stage and somebody who is also looking at the fact that we have sent a sizable delegation to the UN General Assembly?
My perspective is that the UN needs to do more. And we can't say because the UN is not doing enough, we should throw the baby away with the bathwater. The truth of it is that there needs to be a convergence of nations to ensure that there's peace in the world. Peace in the world is a responsibility of all parties. It is an undertaking that world leaders must ensure that they conform to. Because if we leave it in the hand of various persons and not put a form of check on them, then the war is an invitation to anarchy, and the end result would not be good enough. And now, having said that, what we must all ensure, the delegation that has gone, is to also impress it on the UN that you are not just there as a ceremonial body. You must walk the talk, apply sanctions. Because if you were in other circumstances, the sanctions would have been applied. And this is what we are calling for, that the UN must back and bite and ensure that there is compliance. Because, you can't bully other nations into submission. There must be sanctions. And that's what I feel that is a step in the right direction.
People say you cannot give sanctions outside of the, outside of what the UN Security Council will determine, because the UN Security Council will have the ultimate say. Yes, they will be voting at the General Assembly, but then the UN Security Council, which is, in which 5 members hold the veto power, if 1 or 2 of the powers are not in support of the sanctions, then those sanctions cannot even hold in the first instance. So, do you think that do you think its veto power system is still a way to the United Nations, or do you think there ought to be new thinking around how world politics should be organized?
I didn't get that question.
Well, what's your thinking about how politics should be organized?
Well, politics is always a game of numbers, and what happens in circumstances at times, it might not be fair because of the numbers. But there's this natural law that says that men ought to be reasonable, and one would expect that out of 5, a substantial number should be reasonable. And now, having said that, there are also factors that parties outside that body of the 5 can also speak on behalf of other nations and say, come, put some form of pressure on them to say, let's do the right thing. Let's do the proper thing. And once there is pressure on them to do the proper thing, it will be difficult for them to step away from the general disposition of other members of the UN, not particularly the Security Council, but the other parties can now put some form of pressure on them, because they are also stakeholders, to have a talk with them to say, no, this position, the direction you are heading is not good enough. We think that you should do this. And I think that that's the best way forward. That, of course, we would expect that the natural law that men ought to be reasonable would be applied. Of course, there are politics, there are factors that would influence such decisions. But the larger decision that we should all look at as as a world, our worldview should be peace in the world. And that is what the UN should be fighting for.
What are your expectations? Because today Nigeria should be making its own position known at the UN General Assembly, ongoing with the Vice President representing the President at the event. What are your expectations from his speech?
Well, for Nigeria, our speech would, like last year, we wanted to become a permanent member, and that, of course, was not acceded to. This year, the same proposition will be made, and we're optimistic that Nigeria will be accepted. But my view is that most likely the same stance from last year will still come into play. And Nigeria also, I feel that we should be more specific as to our demands. When you are asking for more funding, you should be very clear as to what the funding you are requesting for. What do you intend to do with it? Are you intending to build tech hubs? And give timelines. Don't just throw it in the wind. Give us $10 billion. What do you intend to do with the money? Let's say, give us $10 billion in the next 2 or 3 years. We would build tech hubs, we'll build children hospitals. Let's track our growth. And also, Nigeria should be in a position to let them know, this is what we have assessed so far from the UN, this is what we have assessed from IMF, or wherever we have assessed them, this is what we have done with the funding. This is the steps we have taken in terms of our security. This is where we were last year. This is where we are going. And, there should be analysis, in-depth analysis, not just come to read speeches that are, that are just cooked up and they are no verifiable facts. People want to listen to you when there's track record of growth, when there's track record of the steps that you have taken and how you have been able to turn around and manage what has been given you in times past.
Some people are disappointed that the president is not the one representing Nigeria himself. Are you disappointed as well?
Well, this is not the first time.
Okay.
Yes, so this is not the first time, and it is not out of place for him to have the vice president attend that forum. And also, lately people have been complaining that the president has been traveling so much. So it might be a way of the president listening to the voices of the masses. I hope that is it.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Opeyemi Oluwatodimu is a lawyer and public affairs analyst. We appreciate your time and your thoughts today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
Time around, we're taking a look at the promises of the president. Yes, it's 2 years plus into the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but especially as we count down towards the 1st of October, Independence Day. Some people will say, how far so far towards our journey to nationhood? Because everybody will say, well, if you really understand what a nation is, there are those who argue that Nigeria is not yet a nation, we're far from being a nation, and that our many tribes and tongues really need to come together to forge that one thing to make us, to identify together as brothers and sisters. But that is not yet happening. The question will be, what will it take for us to get there? Is it really a destination, or is it going to continue to be a journey? If it is a journey, if you say it's a journey, how are we currently faring, especially under the current administration? Well, this morning we're joined by two gentlemen. One of them will be in our in our Lagos studios. He'll be coming in shortly. But right now on Zoom, we have Dr. Abdulwasiu Oyakire, who is a member of the All Progressives Congress and joins us from Edo State. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning, Mr. Oyakire. I do not know how you, will assess the current administration in its quest to try and forge a brotherhood. Well, I say, maybe I shouldn't use that word, lest the women come from me using it as a woman myself. But forming, or will I say creating or forging a country where people see themselves as brothers and sisters. How far so far under this administration?
All right, good morning, Mokwe. Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you so much for having me. Going straight to your question, I think the issue of national unity is a project ongoing. It's a continuous process. But I think the president has displayed a high level of intentionality in ensuring that this national unity as the subject is enhanced. I mean, the introduction of the reintroduction of the old national anthem, which speaks to our unity in diversity, which speaks to our quest for nationhood, I think speaks volume about the president's intention. And I think there is a verse in that anthem that says, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. And so I think that caps and encapsulates the entire fulcrum of the president's intention towards the nation, to build a nation where, yes, we acknowledge our differences, we acknowledge that we come from different tribes, and we acknowledge that we come from different regions, we have a vast variation in our culture and our religion, but then we must remain together and we must stick together, we must ensure that the Nigerian project is not a project that is tied to one tribe or one group. So that is why it is often chanted, though tribes and tongues may differ, but we must acknowledge our differences. In brotherhood we stand, we will stand together as one. So I think the president is doing a lot in terms of ensuring that the unity of the country is upheld. And also, more importantly too, is the entrenchment of the federal character. You can see the appointments of the president being spread across the different geographical zones in the country. So that speaks volume too of the administration. I think it will be fair for us to address the issues as an administration rather than of the president. Because yes, the president is the head of the administration, but it's an administrative thing. So we must look at every angle to the administration. Once we do that, we'll begin to understand that it's a collective thing. Everyone, every tribe, every citizen, the media inclusive, should be a part of this project. The project Nigeria is not a project for the president alone. It's a project for you and I, those in diaspora, and everybody who is concerned and has an affiliation to the country called Nigeria.
Well, I'm sure you are very aware that one of the greatest criticisms against the president since he became president is this issue of nepotism. They've accused him of appointing mostly people from his side of the country, particularly Lagos State. And if you take a look at, you know, some of the, well, I say important levels of government, these accusations are not without evidence. As somebody who is a member of the All Progressives Congress, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, sometimes we hear people make such accusations. And the first thing we must understand is that the records are there, the facts are there. I think some months ago, the presidency had released the list of appointees that the president has made, and they have been distributed across the geographical zones. So sometimes speculations without facts is a problem. But if you say that the president has chosen that the members of his inner cabinet and kitchen cabinet should be people he's familiar with, I do not think any leader should be judged harshly if you choose to implement very revolutionary policies with people you have tested in the past and you have trusted their delivery. A lot of times the media tell you that, oh, Lagos is a no man's land, every culture is in Lagos, every tribe is in Lagos. But when it comes to appointment, we begin to exhibit some form of naive nepotism, saying that, oh, why is it Lagos? I think the president chooses to work with people he has confidence in, people he has tested and trusted before now, because the Nigerian project is not a project for trial and error. It is a project that should be seen to have the best pilots on the wheel. So if the president chooses to go in that way, I mean, but rather choosing competent hands that he knows. And even in doing that, he has also been very careful to ensure that the federal character is not abused. And I think for those who hold such view, it will be pertinent to tell them that let the facts come up. Yes, we know that a couple of members of the kitchen cabinet, which has always been the case anyway, we find out that each time we have our presidents, they would always like to bring close to themselves those who are of their tribal extraction. But that does not raise question about the federal character.
How does it not? Because in this particular instance, you have justified it, yet you say it's not an affront to the federal character. Many people will disagree with you.
Yes, you see, you put yourself in a position, for instance, if as you are now today, you are made probably the chairman of Channels TV, I am sure that the cabinet you are going to set up, you are going to be looking out for those people you have worked with in the past who have proven to be intelligent, who have proven their worth, who have proven their onion, and you would rather be more comfortable and relaxed to give them a department or a unit and say, handle this, and you go and sleep confidently, rather than trying to test run people you have not known before, people you haven't seen before. So this might be the president's thinking towards that. I am not standing in for the president, but I'm only telling you that Nigerians should, rather than criticize where these people are coming from, look at their pedigree. Does it mean that if today I become a governor of a state, therefore all members of those who I have known and my family members should naturally be excluded from giving their best to the nation? So I think we should become more objective. We've had presidents from the US, George Bush, for instance, the father and the son, they were presidents. We have Adams, the father and the son in the US, they were presidents. They both transformed to president. The father was the president, prime minister, and then the son too took over. So sometimes let us not be myopic approach to thinking that, oh, this man, where is he from? The next time you hear an appointment, rather than asking who is the person and what is his pedigree, you begin to ask, where is this person from? Oh, his name sounds like he's from this tribal extraction. I think that is a big distraction that we have had as a nation, and it's something that we must begin to grow above. We must grow above the individual primitive views to things, to look at the broader concern of the nation. I think we should rather question the quality, the qualification, and the need for those people, rather than questioning where they are from.
I'll see whether our guest in Lagos agrees with you on this particular view. And Ayo, I know that our guest should be seated now. It's over to you.
Well, thank you, Mokwe. Mr. Dapo Adaramewa is here. He's an entrepreneur, strategy and policy consultant, and he's also a member of the Obedient Movement. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
First of all, would you also accuse the president of nepotism like some?
I think your first guest has admitted that there is a bias, right? He's just trying to justify it. He's saying that, okay, it's really about the character of the person, and I will not, I would not argue about that. The character of the person.
Do you think there is a bias?
Certainly, we can see it in he has picked his crew the Lagos crew, right? There's no denying that. Right?
Is he the first person to do that?
No. Unfortunately, I think the last president sent a very dangerous pedigree, shall we say. He set the standard, and there's just a continuation of that.
How about previous
to a lesser
as well?
extent? Previous governments, I'm not too sure. That's the truth. But I do know that the previous government set that as the standard, in fact, to a very detrimental degree. The character and the qualifications of the person ultimately matter. But in a federal state like Nigeria, the federal character principle is integral. You cannot tell me that there is any state in Nigeria that cannot produce one individual that has the capacity to deliver on any position.
But would you really say that, that is the case, given that, there are many other offices? The federal government has more than 1,500 ministries, departments, agencies, and corporations. And perhaps we're only speaking to just the prominent ones, and maybe there are others that we're not looking at.
Yeah, that's very possible. That's very possible. But we have to judge by what we see, right? And now, previously, the federal character principle has not been followed, and it doesn't even have enough autonomy to check any administration or to publish its own data. It would be nice to see concrete data on what the split is according in the various different ministries and parastatals. Let us actually know what is happening. Unfortunately, we don't have that data. So all we're left to do is speculate by the people we can see, the people who are constantly in the news.
Okay, so that's one leg of it. The other leg is whether or not there's been competence. So on the one hand is the accusation of nepotism, and then there's the other leg of performance and all of that. Well, you're talking about hard data. There are those who are speaking to the fact that for the first time ever, Nigeria has recorded, like in a very long time, Nigeria has recorded some 4% growth in GDP. For the first time ever, Nigeria has increased its revenue generation capacity, tremendously. And there are those who are still pointing to the fact that, first of all, that is non-tax, non-oil, that is tax revenues have increased for the first time ever, so astronomically. And with the new laws, the tax laws in January, kicking in from January, we might see an even more increase in that, at least as far as the federal government is concerned. We'll come back to the states, later. So, and then there are those who are also speaking to some infrastructure, soft infrastructure development, that a good number of people haven't been able to do, a good number of previous leaders have not been able to do over time. Are you in cahoot with them, or you are a bit of a variance?
Yeah, well, I think firstly we have to be very honest with ourselves, right? It's very normal for the government to try and pat itself on the back, but one thing we do know for a fact is that 2 out of 3 Nigerians currently are living in multidimensional poverty. That is awful.
Whose data is that?
That's according to the most international organizations recognize that. Even the Bureau of Statistics in Nigeria recognizes that almost 90% of Nigerians are in the informal sector. So that means they have no job security. These are people who are hustling for their daily bread. They are literally one case of malaria away from being able to take care of themselves, right? So the writing is on the wall. We know that Nigerians are worse off than they ever were. We know that inflation is almost about 20% right now. Nigerians have less money, right? And there's less that they can do with it than ever before. So these are just the facts that we're looking at, right? We look at the fact that this government is spending about 60% of its revenue on servicing old debt. Well, at the same time, in the last 2 years, they've borrowed $21 billion. Now, let's ask ourselves, what have we seen? We talk about infrastructural projects. I think the big thing that they shout is this Calabar Expressway. The Calabar Expressway has not gotten to 10% completion, right? And yet, all the ministers flew on their private jets to come and cut a ribbon here in Lagos State. It's an embarrassment. It is testament to the fact that these people are not focused. Of that 21 billion that has been borrowed in the last 2 years, can we point to anything that has improved the lives of Nigerians? I can't see it. I can't see it at all.
Well, Dr. Yakire, I believe you would want to have a say or two about that, just so we have some kind of balance. Do you agree with Mr. Dakohea?
Yeah, thank you so much. You see, I think states, we should look at the facts and the data. The data of the presidential appointments was released by the presidency some weeks or so ago. So I think maybe Mr. Dakpo can avail himself that document. It reflects the federal character. And then talking about the economy and
Well, Dr. Yakire, we don't have good network from your end now. As soon as we do, we'll definitely take you back so that we can really enjoy the content that you're going to be giving to us. But there's that one little thing that he said now. Perhaps the issue sometimes is that of what data are we looking at? So on the one hand, government will release its own data. Mm-hmm. Economists will analyze its data, and I can tell you, I mean, having been on this program a number of times, that there are some economists that actually believe that, okay, maybe the government, the federal government is doing something. It's the challenge that have been on ground, and I'm glad that you usually like to look at issues on a balance. The challenge is people are not feeling it. Simply because, I mean, just as you have pointed out, a good number of people living in multidimensional poverty live in the states. Now, the states have more resources deployed to them. Unfortunately, Nigerians are not feeling the benefits. The president, a number of times at different fora, have called out the governors and said, guys, we are doing our best here. You are the ones that are doing all of this work at the subnational level. The people should be feeling you more than they should be feeling the federal government. So what's your take on that? Do you think there's anything else the federal government could have done? And I'm very specific about using the word the federal government could have done to ensure that the state governments do what is expected of them, so that the benefits that are coming from the federal purse is reflective on the lives of the people.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot they could have done. I think it was last year, the Supreme Court passed a judgment saying that local governments should get their funding directly. There's no need for it to run through the state government. Now, somehow, over the past year, the Federal Executive Committee and the committees that they've set up to implement this ruling of the Federal, of the Supreme Court have been unable to do that. Right? That is something so that you don't have to appease the governor. You can simply just follow what is the law and make sure that the funding gets to the last layer of government, the last layer of government that is closest to the people. It's a huge failure there. Now, looking at the federal government in itself, this is the first time, I believe, in about 15 years that the budget office has not released a report on its budget performance. Now, that report is basically, this is what we said we were going to spend, this is how we spent it. For a year, they have not done that. For the first time in 15 years. It is a huge indictment on the federal system itself, the federal government and the president currently, and as well as it shows that if you cannot hold yourself to account, on what pedestal are you standing on to try and hold the governors to account when you can simply implement what is the law?
So you don't buy the statements of the federal government on the two issues. On the one hand, the Ministry of Defense Incorporated, actually, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, have said that, look, it's not just cut and paste. There are certain soft infrastructure that need to be adjusted in the policy, and even the budget office issue that you spoke to, they have also come out with certain information that because some things are moving, it's not easy to just track the data. So you don't buy that information?
Put it this way. If you have the might and the resources of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at your disposal, and the wisdom of all the intellectuals that we have in this country, and you cannot implement paying money to the local government chairman or the right individuals, then that is a failure.
Okay.
Point blank.
Dr. Yakire, your response, you wanted to say something the other time. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think when we're talking about the records and how the economy is faring, I think we should be quite objective in how we present the facts. Yesterday, the MPC, Monetary Policy Committee, released the data, and we can see that there is a decline in the inflation up to about 20.1% from 21.8% just last month when we had a similar interaction. And our forex has gone, foreign reserves has now gone over to over 43 billion US dollars. So I think the figures are looking good. The country's economy is stabilizing, and we dare say that we are close to stability. But just like one would always argue, maybe we may need to do more to trickle it down. And that's when you find movements like the Republic City Boy movement entering the market, empowering these market women directly without necessarily using proxy. You see, when the president approves something,
what you're saying is an intervention of sorts, Dr. Yakire. How about ensuring there's something that Mr. Dapohe, I guess, he has said earlier about the fact that the people are not feeling it. It doesn't have to be an intervention, activity like that of the City Boy movement or the Obedient movement. It has to be the government doing what it needs to do, be it at the federal or state level.
When the government award a road from, say, Benin, Ramat Park in Benin up till probably Okene or Lokoja, it is not just for the government purpose alone, it is to serve the people. When the government come up with educational policies to improve the curriculum, saying that we should now emphasize more on skills, it is not only for the government, it is for the people. And when the government award construction of health centers, come up with health policies, all of these things are for the people, not for the government alone. So sometimes I think the problem we have is the expectations of Nigerians. Nigerians believe that the change we should see should be automatic. It should just happen overnight. Meanwhile, the years of decay have culminated into the state we have now. So to leave this state, it must take time. We must trust the process. It is a procedural thing. And that the budget office did not release the budget performance. I think, Mr. Dakwa, if the budget office is in Abuja, you can write to them and then share your response to the public. So we know that, okay, you have written to them. So you can request for some of this information, but it will be foolhardy for us to hold the government that the government is not performing when we have not looked at what the figures are looking like.
Interesting that you would ask Mr. Adaramewa to write to request for something that the government should do itself. But wait just a moment, I'm sure that Maokwe has a question or two as well. Maokwe, go ahead.
Let's take a look at this one. Creating sufficient jobs with decent wages. We are at a place where inflation, they say, is on the decline. Yesterday, we saw the Central Bank of Nigeria cut interest rates as a result of decreasing inflation, or inflation not growing as fast as it did last year. However, the pains remain the same, especially for lots of Nigerians who are low-income earners, even the mid-income earners or even high-income earners. And lots of them are complaining about how inflation has affected their income. Let's not even talk about job creation. In that area, how would you say that the Tinubu administration has fared?
If they are constructing the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, there are those that will be employed on that job directly. But beyond those people who are working on the project, who have gotten direct employment, there is that woman who sells food in the afternoon at 1 o'clock, who will have to take the food to the site to sell to workers. There is that bus driver who will transport workers to the site. There is that recharge card seller to sell to workers. There is that bus driver who will transport workers to the site. There is that recharge card seller who will sell recharge cards to workers who wants to call their families in the evening. So these are indirect jobs that will be created along that chain. But sometimes we focus so much on the white-collar jobs, how many jobs have been created in terms of the white-collar. The monetary policy is creating a lot of jobs in the non-formal sector. People can now have access to having digital tools, and resources are available. Investors are willing now to come and invest in Nigeria because the economy is now stable. And yesterday, we should also understand that the Nigerian brand is beginning to market. Yesterday, I heard Alhan Islam, Mariam Bokar, speak at the UN General Assembly. And if you listen to her speech, you can see the Nigerian spirit. I think this is what Nigerians should become now. We should become more patriotic about our country. We should become more holistic in our views, rather than be, yes, we understand that Nigeria is not what we want it to be. We understand that there is struggle, there is a lot of financial unrest in the vast majority of the citizens, but you don't take people from the states where they are not too comfortable financially and take them high by giving them money directly. No, you make policies. These policies will dovetail into them being elevated in their financial status. And I think these policies are in the right direction. Last month, we had the same discussion, and you will agree with me that from last month to this month, there has been some improvements. Whether the improvement is as we want it to be in terms of being astronomical, or it is just moving arithmetically, is a different ballgame entirely. But definitely, we are not where we used to be. And I think that if we give the government more time, it's just 2 years. that we will get to where we want to be. The president has promised us jobs, and we can see some jobs being created both in the direct employment and indirect employment. Jobs are being created. The jobs are there. So I think we should give credit to the government.
Would you have had, I mean, assuming the candidate of the Labour Party had won the elections, would you have had him do anything differently, especially given the fact that they too, I mean, he himself as well as Vice President Atiku Abubakar had all promised that they were going to take away fuel subsidy. Part of the criticism is that too much was done too soon, and as such is the reason we've seen inflation skyrocket in the manner that it did. It's slowing somewhat, but it's still there. Would you have had them do anything differently? This is for you, Mr. Adaramewa.
I believe His Excellency Peter Gregory also said, like you pointed out, that it will remove fuel subsidy. Now, the issue still is how it was done, right? So you had a lot of changes that were done very abruptly without any sense of order. And what that created in the system was chaos, and Nigerians are paying for it right now. Right? We could have had a staggered phase out of these issues. We also could have investigated what really went on when this fuel subsidy scam was going on and tried to recover the loot that was taken from the Nigerian people. I think that would have been a good place to start. And also, just to respond to what the other guest has said in regards to job creation, it shows that maybe this government does not fully appreciate that a government's job is not primarily just to create jobs, right? You create jobs by creating an environment for private business to grow and thereby create jobs for the people. It's not the federal government that is going to employ everybody in Nigeria. That is just ludicrous. It cannot work. And the question we must ask ourselves, in the last 2 years, has this government created a situation where private business can grow? When the interest rates are at 30%, when the fact that there's been no development around electricity, there's been no development, solid development in infrastructure that would make it easier to move goods around the country, there's been no leaps and bounds when it comes to internet or the development of proper cabling for fast internet, we realize that this government has done absolutely nothing for private business to grow. I find that as a businessman, you grow in spite of the government, not because of it. Whereas when you're abroad, when you're living in a country that actually works, the government helps private business to grow. These are the things that Peter Obi has set out that he would have done and he will do when he comes into power. You don't think that enabling an organization like Dangote to work in a way that you can buy 4,000 trucks and recruit about between 4,000 and 10,000 people, you don't think it's an enabling environment? Dangote, let's be clear, Dangote's refinery was passed far before this government. In fact, it was under this government, if you remember, that Mr. Dangote was on TV crying to the nation to come and help him because the government was trying to strangle him through the NNPC. But has he strangled? Well, don't even answer that question. They tried. They tried. So many other issues to take on with that one, but unfortunately, we're completely out of time. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Adaramewa is an entrepreneur, strategy and policy consultant. He's also a member of the Obedient Movement, as well as Dr. Abdulwasiu Oyakire, who is a member of the APC and the coordinator City Boy Movement in Edo State, joins us virtually. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time this morning. Thank you. And that's the show today. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your morning. Business Morning is up on the hour. I'm Aya Makinde. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Indeed. Thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful hump day.